Hey guys, my name's Mariano. Thanks for visiting the page. What you're seeing here is Rocket. He's a chocolate lab about a year old. I'm going to be doing some work with him to work on his focus. He's a good pup, but he tends to counter surf and bark at strangers, and overall he tends to be pretty antsy, pretty anxious. So I want to work some stuff to get him to slow down and get into a calmer, healthier headspace. So I'm going to be doing that using prong collar and e-collar. This video is going to be focusing on downstays. I'm going to start nice and easy. Here I'm at the park, but we're going to work up to this point. We're going to start in the backyard here to make things easy for him. So I just wanted to give a quick intro to what's going on here, and let's get started. Now, this is the backyard. Very minimal distraction. I've got the carpet rolled out so that it's nice and soft for him on the floor. I'm going to ask him to sit. He's taking a little long, so the next time I'm going to ask him to do it quicker. I put him down, give him a stay, and you'll notice this is very short. I don't go too far. I don't hold him there too long. Then I release him with a let's go. Now keep in mind that I do want this guy to be doing these for longer and longer. There's the sit, I want it quicker. If he took long like last time, I would have given him a little correction. There's the stay. I'm going to up the time just a bit here, so I move a little further away, give him a second, and then release him with the let's go. Now I'm going to be upping the time and the movement on my part. I want him down for longer and longer periods of time because I want him to start to understand a couple things. There's the stay, and I'm moving around. So I want him to understand that number one, just because I'm moving around doesn't give you license to move with me. I will release you, I will let you know when it's your time. Until that happens though, you are to commit to the downstay. The second point, as I fix his heel there, is that in order for him to avoid the temptation, and in order for him to kind of keep himself out of trouble in terms of not looking at something that he wants to engage with and using it as a distraction or as a motivation or a reason to break the command, he starts to learn to prioritize what's important over what's not. So if I'm walking around him over there and there's a dog walking around him on the other side of him, he starts to understand that instead of focusing on the dog, which he can't get up and engage with anyway, he starts making the decision to tune it out and focus on me instead. So now we're getting into some downstays that are going to be a bit longer. I'm going to start walking around him. Something to bear in mind quickly here is when you're walking around a dog in a circle, when you're barely starting out, try to do a half circle and try to make that the front half of the dog. Think 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Because when you start going around to the back half of the dog, that's when the dog gets more tempted to kind of get up and spin around and then plop back on the floor so that they can see you, or maybe they'll just kind of get up all together and come to you. Also, try to be cognizant of if you put pressure on the leash, they're going to assume you're bringing them toward you, and they're going to break the command, so try not to put too much leash pressure on him. I know I'm walking around him in a way that makes it look like the leash is pretty close to being taut, but make sure you keep that little bit of slack in there so that he's not confused as to whether or not he's supposed to stay in his stay or commit to a recall. Doing this will make things nice and clear for him. I don't want him to get confused. That just ends up making things harder for both of us. Alright, I've got a couple more things to do with him here before I finish him up in terms of feeling like he's pretty well proofed here in the backyard and we move on to higher distraction stuff like the park. So I'm going to put him in a stay, I move around him a little bit, and then I'm going to drop the leash and move around him some more. Dogs do tend to be very aware of whether or not you're holding on to the leash, even if you're within range of the leash. Lots of owners will attest to the fact that dogs will give you some very different behavior when you're not holding onto the leash or they're not wearing their leash. Even if it's an instance where you just take it off and it's 2 seconds later, you have totally different behaviors coming from your dog. So the leash is on the floor. I've got a ball. I'm bouncing it around to test his fortitude to see if he's going to commit to the downstay. It's important to understand that I give it to him as a reward here when I let him go. But if he decided to try to go for the ball, and his way of getting the ball would be to break my command and just go for it, he wouldn't get it. I'd deny him the ball, I'd take him back to where he was, I'd correct him and then put him back down, because it's important for him to understand in terms of building relationship that your way to get the ball is to just listen and follow direction, and then I will reward you with the ball. It does very good stuff for the mindset when these rewards come from you. But moving right along, because now we're at the park, we just got there, so I'm tuning him in here with a bit of heel, something a little easier for him to digest. I've got the e-collar remote over there in my right hand. I've got leash in the left, nice and short. He's wearing the educator boss collar, the big dog collar, and he's working right there, I believe, at about a 7, like 5 to 7, just to give you a rough idea of where he's working currently. During this training session here, I did get up to about 17 when the distractions got higher because I had him working downstays and he was getting a little pushier when more and more people and dogs started walking by around us. So here I'm using the heel as a way to tune him in and kind of warm him up so that we can mesh well together and get a good thing going before we really hit the bulk of our training lesson today. Now we're going to do just some brief heels, some brief sits and downstays before we get back to our little designated training area, and at that time I'll be working some longer downstays. I'll be moving around. There are people and dogs moving around here and there. There's cars rolling by. My little sister's working the camera. Plenty of stuff to grab his attention, so it's a perfect opportunity for me to cultivate some attention, especially when it's not so easy. Like just there where I gave him a correction for focusing on that person that was walking by. Dogs tend to do very well in the training yard or in training rooms and kennels, but it's very important to make sure that you work them to a standard that's consistent with what's likely to be a realistic distraction in daily life with the owner. It's great that the dogs do well when all things are simple, and that time is absolutely paramount when a dog is first learning because you don't want to throw too much at them. But when they start to get a little comfortable, start to get a bit of training under their belt, it's absolutely essential that you up the distraction, take the dog to higher traffic areas, and really test their mettle in the real world. And here we go. Now that we've got him in our little designated training area, this here is going to be where we spend the majority of our time for this training lesson. And I know that I chop up these videos, so just to give you a rough idea of how long these training lessons with him have been, the one in the yard was about 40 minutes, and the one out here was probably closer to an hour, and I know that that sounds like a really long training lesson for a dog. The reason why I'm doing it like this is because since he's spending a lot of time laying down and staying, I push him for these longer periods of time because I want him to understand how to cultivate focus and how to tune out distractions for a longer period of time. By the time he's just about ready to go home in like a week and a half here, I'm going to be having him in downstays that are closer to 60 to 90 minutes. So here he goes, he's released from the downstay and we're off. I did that one nice and short. It was much shorter than the last ones that I was doing inside of the yard because now that we're out and about, I wanted to take just a couple steps backward and really make sure that he's dialed in before we progress. But this time, he's doing pretty well. I did a couple repetitions like this, so I'm moving around him. I'm asking him to focus for a longer period of time. I'm circling around, even though there's people walking on the other side of us. I release him there and praise him. I'm giving him lots of praise because he's doing a good job under high levels of distraction. Again, if this praise turned out to be something that was negative in terms of distracting him, I wouldn't give him so much of it. In these next couple attempts here, you're going to see a bit of resistance. He's taken a long time to sit after that heel, and because of that, I had him do it again because that one was a little too sloppy for my taste. So I've got him sitting there. I'm going to put him down here. If he keeps this up, I'm going to start jumping out to the e-collar, so be on the lookout for that. If you see a little bit of kind of a head turn, or maybe he'll kind of shake his head a bit, it's because I'm correcting, because he's getting a little too tuned out to me. And because of that, I'm trying to help myself out by having him sit when I finish that recall there in order to keep this just a bit more structured so that he understands exactly what's going on, because I also need to give him a little benefit of the doubt because it's not so much that he's just choosing not to listen. He's definitely showing me that he's a little distracted with all the things going on outside, but that's good. That's why we're here. So I'm gonna work him to try to iron out those wrinkles and really see if I can cultivate a nice focused dog even with all these distractions around. So I'm gonna push him through it. I've got the e-collar in my right hand over there still, and we're gonna work through a few more reps and see what we get. Notice here how long this sit's gonna take. Too long for my taste. It took about as long as the first couple reps we did in the yard. He's starting to be a little bratty. He's giving me a little pushback because I've been holding him accountable. You'll find that when you're working dogs, especially for these longer lessons, that after about 10-15 minutes and they start to get over it a bit, they do give you a bit of pushback. And I think that if you hit this wall there, it's very important to work them through that. And as soon as you work past that and they start to give you good behaviors, then it's perfect time to go ahead and cut the training lesson right there. But we haven't gotten there just yet, so we're going to keep moving. I've got him working some more heel there. He's taking a long time with these sits, so I give him a correction with the e-collar. He took too long, so I'm not going to bother with the down just yet. I really want to make sure that I dial in that heel and that sit. If you see that little correction there that just happened, perfect time for me to reinforce the boundary there. So this one here, he does much better. That's quick. So I ask him to go down and we push on. So this is my last kind of longer duration downstay that I did with him for this lesson. I walk around him quite a bit. In just a sec, I'm going to kneel down because sometimes kneeling down as if you were tying a shoe or just kind of squatting really tempts a dog to get up because it seems like inviting behavior, but he doesn't fall for it. He pays attention to what I'm saying or not saying, which is releasing him. I go ahead and release him just about here because he's doing a good job. I praise him, and that's about the end of this lesson here. So guys, I hope that you found this informative and helpful. Please let me know. Also, it'd be a huge help if you could like, comment, subscribe, share, help me spread the word, and I hope to see you guys very soon with the next video. Have a good one.